Before we dive into these scary stories, make sure to hit that subscribe button if you enjoy true horror content every week. When you are ready, lean back, and let's dive into this week's horror stories. We were two Americans on a road trip through northern Norway, me and my best friend, Christy. It was late June during the midnight sun season, so it never truly got dark. We were supposed to make it to a small guest house outside of town, near the Lyngen Alps. We should have been there hours ago, but the winding roads and endless photo stops threw us off schedule. We'd been driving for hours and I was already on edge, tired and irritated, when Christy suddenly announced she had to pee. "Can you just hold it?" I asked more harshly than I meant to. She winced. "No, seriously, I can't. I'm dying over here." We were in the middle of absolutely nowhere. No lights, no signs, no houses. Just a narrow road with nothing but miles of silent forest around. Frustrated, I pulled over onto the gravel shoulder. "Make it quick." Christy grabbed a roll of toilet paper from the back seat, muttered something like, "sorry," and headed toward the tree line. I stayed in the driver's seat, engine running, scrolling through photos on my phone to distract myself. Minutes passed. Too many minutes. I checked the rearview mirror. Nothing. Just the forest and the pale twilight sky above it. "Christy?" I called out through the open window. No answer. I waited another 30 seconds, then got out, annoyed but also slightly uneasy. "Christy, come on, let's go." Still nothing. That's when the unease really hit me. I grabbed my phone, turned on the flashlight, and stepped toward the trees. She couldn't have gone far. 20, maybe 30 feet in. Tops. "Christy?" I called again. The forest was darker than I expected. Dense, damp, and strangely quiet. I passed the first few trees, shining my light around. Nothing. Just moss, trunks, and low-hanging branches. I called her phone. It rang. The sound came from deeper in the woods. I couldn't see anything, but I heard it. Muffled and distant. I hesitated. Everything in me said to turn back, but I couldn't leave her out there. I followed the ringtone, weaving between trees, my phone shaking in my hand. The deeper I went, the colder the air felt. My sandals slipped a few times on the damp ground. Then the ringtone stopped. And that's when I heard her voice. "Come over here," Christy said. I swept my light in the direction of the voice. "Christy, what the hell are you doing? You're seriously freaking me out." "Come over here," she said again. I was only a few feet away from where the sound came from, but I still couldn't see her. The forest was too thick. Shadows and branches swallowed everything. Then my phone buzzed. A text from Christy. "Hey, sorry. Didn't hear you calling. I'm back at the car. Where are you?" I stopped breathing for a second. The cold in my chest wasn't from the forest anymore. She texted me again. My phone was on silent LOL. "You good?" Fearing for my life, I turned slowly. I could barely lift my voice when I whispered, "Christy, where are you?" "Come here," the voice said again. I knew now. It wasn't her. I backed away, eyes fixed in the direction of the voice, phone light shaking so bad it barely helped. Another buzz. Another text. "Jess, are you okay? You're freaking me out. Where the hell are you?" And then, I saw the thing that had been mimicking her. Just beyond a cluster of trees, maybe 20 feet away, was a face. White like porcelain. No eyebrows, no hair. Just two black eyes and a smile too that was twice the size of a normal human's mouth. It was looking directly at me. Everything went silent for a moment and it felt like forever. Then it moved towards me. I ran, full sprint. No logic, no thoughts. Just knew that I had to get out of there. "Christy, get in the car," I screamed as I ran. "Lock the doors." I burst out of the forest, gravel spraying as I skidded onto the road. Christy was standing there looking confused and startled. "What the hell are you? Get in!" I shoved her toward the passenger side. We slammed the door shut. I locked everything and threw the car into drive, tires kicking up gravel as we peeled away. "Jess, what is going on?" she asked. I was crying and shaking uncontrollably. "There was something. It pretended to be you. I heard your ringtone. It talked like you. I followed it into the woods. God, I thought it was you." She stared at me, pale and wide-eyed. "What do you mean?" "I was like 50 feet from the car. I didn't hear you at all." I looked at her and knew she was telling the truth. She was scared too now. I drove for hours until we reached the guest house. We didn't check in, didn't sleep. We just sat in the car, doors locked, headlights on until the sun was bright again. I never believed in the paranormal. Not really. But after that night in the northern woods of Norway, I do. I really, really do. It was early spring, and I wanted to see a part of the country I'd only ever flown over. Missouri, Kansas, Nebraska, places people usually skip. It was going to be cheap and unstructured. Just me, my old Camry, and a sleeping bag in the back seat when motels got too expensive. A few days before I left, I got the idea to post on Craigslist. I figured maybe I could find someone else looking to travel a bit, split gas, maybe have some company for a leg of the trip. I posted something casual. Heading west through Missouri and Kansas. Safe, chill traveler looking for someone to split gas and stories. Email if interested. The ad was up for about 6 hours before I got a reply. His name was Mason. Said he was 28, recently left a job in construction, just trying to figure things out, and head back toward family in Colorado. He didn't have a car, but was happy to split gas and food. His email was polite, spelled correctly, no weird tone or red flags. He even sent a picture, a guy with scruffy brown hair standing next to a rusted-out pickup. I called him. He sounded normal, maybe a little quiet, but not sketchy. We agreed I'd pick him up in Columbia, Missouri the next day. He was waiting outside a gas station when I pulled up, wore a faded Carhartt jacket and carried just one canvas duffel. He shook my hand, thanked me for picking him up, and climbed in. For the first few hours, he didn't talk much. I didn't push. We just drove west, the windows cracked, music low. Every now and then he'd ask questions. Where I was from, why I was doing this trip, whether I liked traveling alone. He told me bits about himself too. He'd worked framing houses, but a back injury ended that. Said his mom was sick out in Colorado Springs and he wanted to be there for her. I noticed he didn't have a phone, which struck me as odd, but he said it got stolen at a bus station a week earlier and he hadn't had the cash to replace it. Still, something about him never fully sat right. It wasn't anything he said. It was the pauses. The way he looked at you just a little too long when you spoke. The way he sometimes didn't respond to things for several seconds, like he had to rehearse his answer. That night, we stopped at a roadside motel just outside Salina, Kansas. It was one of those L-shaped buildings with outdoor entrances and flickering neon. I got us a room with 2 beds and figured it was easier than sleeping in the car. I showered first while he went out to grab snacks. When I came out, his bag was still on the bed, unopened. I didn't mean to snoop, but I caught a glimpse when it flopped over. There were no clothes, no toiletries, just a large hunting knife and what looked like bundles of paper stuffed into a manila folder. Old newspaper clippings, maybe. I didn't touch anything, just zipped it shut and sat on my bed like nothing happened. He came back 10 minutes later with a bag of chips and a couple sodas. He smiled like nothing was wrong. I pretended to be tired and got under the covers. He stayed up, sitting at the little table by the window, just watching the parking lot. I barely slept. Every sound in the room felt louder than it should have been. His movements, the faint crunch of chips, the slow pacing when he got up to stretch. By morning, I had made up my mind to drop him off at the next bus station no matter what. But when I woke up, he was gone. At first, I thought maybe he was outside smoking or grabbing breakfast. But an hour passed. Then 2. I checked with the front desk. No one had seen him. I went back to the room, confused, and found his bag still sitting there right where he left it. That same duffel with the knife and the papers. I opened it again, hands shaking. The clippings were articles about missing people, all over the Midwest, men and women around my age. Most of them were last seen traveling alone. Some of the articles had photos, dates, maps. One of the names was circled in red. It was a girl from Nebraska who had gone missing after offering someone a ride off Craigslist. I called the police. They took the bag, asked me questions for hours. I showed them his photo, gave them the email and the Craigslist ad, everything. But his name wasn't real. The email was already deactivated. The number he gave me was disconnected. And the photo, when they checked the metadata, was years old, from some random Facebook profile that hadn't been active since 2018. They never found him. They couldn't link him to any specific crime either. No DNA, no fingerprints, just a bag full of creepy articles and a knife that hadn't been used for anything they could prove. I finished the rest of the trip alone. I didn't pick up any more passengers, didn't talk to strangers, and I haven't posted on Craigslist since. I still think about Mason sometimes. Wonder why he let me go. Wonder how many people he's ridden with or continue to ride with. How many didn't make it to the next town. Or how close I came to not making it myself. It was sometime past midnight when the tire blew. I was driving through the middle of nowhere somewhere along a rural stretch of highway cutting through northern Arizona. I'd taken a detour hours earlier thinking I'd make better time on the back roads. My GPS had lost signal over an hour ago. I hadn't seen another car in at least 45 minutes. No lights on the horizon, just two thin yellow lines and some crumbling pavement. When the tire popped, it sounded like a gunshot. The steering wheel shook in my hands and I fought to keep control until I could roll the car to a stop on the side of the road. I left the engine running so the headlights could give me some visibility. Without them, I wouldn't have been able to see a thing. There were no streetlights, no buildings, nothing but trees and blackness pressing in on all sides. I stepped out. The front left tire was flat, completely shredded along the edge like it had hit something sharp. I hadn't seen any debris, but maybe I'd zoned out. Frustrated, I popped the trunk and bent down to grab the repair kit and the spare. That's when I saw him. A silhouette. About 150 feet away, right on the edge of where my headlights faded into darkness. A man. I couldn't make out his face, just a solid black outline, standing on the shoulder of the road facing me, perfectly still. There was no reason anyone should have been out there. Not on foot. Not at this hour. I hadn't passed a town in miles. No houses, no driveways, not even a parked car. Just endless stretches of empty highway and dense trees. I stayed crouched there, staring back at him. He didn't move, didn't wave, didn't call out. Just stood there, watching. I tried to shake it off. Maybe he'd had car trouble too. Maybe he was just some unlucky traveler like me. But the longer I stood there, the less that made sense. No one hikes in the middle of the forest at night, and no one just stands like that. I forced myself to look away, grabbed the tools, and got to work as fast as I could. I didn't look up again until I had the flat tire halfway off. And when I did, he was gone. I stood up slowly and scanned the road. Empty. The space where he'd been was just light shining on cracked asphalt. Every instinct in me said to get in the car and drive, but the tire wasn't ready. I knelt down and worked faster. But then I heard footsteps, in the trees to my left. Quick and light steps, like someone moving through dry leaves. Then more footsteps, this time from the right. I stood up straight, socket wrench still in hand. My eyes scanned the woods, but the light from the car barely touched the trees. Everything beyond the ditch was just dark. There were more than one. I could hear them, subtle movements just inside the tree line. Getting closer. My hands moved on autopilot. I yanked the ruined tire off, jammed the spare on, spun the lug nuts as fast as I could manage. The footsteps didn't stop. Closer. Crunching leaves. A snapped twig. I didn't bother putting the tools away neatly. I threw them in the trunk, slammed it shut, and practically dove into the driver's seat. Locked all the doors without thinking. I pressed the brake to shift into drive, and the rear lights came on, illuminating a figure standing right behind my car. They were just a few feet from the bumper, standing still, no reaction to the light. My heart slammed against my ribs. I didn't wait to study him. I floored it. I was gone, barreling down the road at 80, maybe 90 miles per hour. I didn't stop until I saw the lights of a 24-hour gas station maybe 40 minutes later. When I pulled in, I could barely get the gear into park. My legs were shaking too hard. I sat there for a few minutes, engine running, doors still locked, just trying to breathe. Eventually, I went inside. Told the guy behind the counter I had a flat and needed to wash up. Didn't mention the people in the woods. Not then. But before I left, I asked him if there was anyone else living along that stretch of road. Any houses, campers, anything. He shook his head. Not out that way. Closest thing's a ranger station, and that's another 30 miles south. Nothing out there? I asked again. Nope, he said, looking confused. Just forest. I didn't tell anyone else what happened. Not the cops, not my friends. Something tells me if I'd taken any longer getting that spare tire on, I wouldn't be here to tell this story.